Tonight, a woman stabbed to death at Canberra Zoo. 2 metres of rain swamping far north Queensland. A crocodile found in floodwaters. Never before seen video of a gangland execution at Bondi Junction. 1.3 million Sydney drivers about to be rewarded for good behaviour. And tension at the Panthers as Jerome Luai is a no-show after his decision to quit the club.
This is 9 News with Georgie Gardner.
Good evening. A 29-year-old woman has been found dead at the National Zoo and Aquarium in Canberra. She was stabbed to death in the zoo's commercial kitchen area, and tonight her male co-worker is under police guard in hospital.
A murder investigation at the National Zoo. Families leaving in shock.
Took it really sadly, yeah.
And workers embracing. Police found the body of a 29-year-old zoo employee in a storeroom of a commercial kitchen about 1 o'clock this afternoon.
At this stage it looks like she's been stabbed to death with a knife. Witnesses have described loud screams from around the commercial kitchen area.
Her 29-year-old co-worker is tonight in hospital under police guard with self-inflicted stab wounds. The zoo and the aquarium have remained closed to the public while homicide detectives and WorkSafe investigators scan the scene. It's hoped it will reopen tomorrow.
I'm so devastated. They've sent an email saying that there'll be psychologists and everyone to talk to about if you're not feeling well and tomorrow.
At this stage, no charges have been laid. In Canberra, Fiona Willan, 9 News.
A 1 in 100-year flood has forced thousands of people out of their homes in far north Queensland. The torrential rain is the sting in the tail of ex-cyclone Jasper, which hit last week.
The pub with beer, but no car park. So if you wanted a drink at the Uramo pub, it was boat only. As the hangover from Cyclone Jasper proves hard to shake.
We got lots of notifications for the cyclone, but we got no notifications for the flooding.
More than 2 metres of rain has been dumped on far north Queensland in 5 days.
Well, this is South Johnson at the moment.
A home with a water view. And the hospital at Mossman teetering on going under. Cairns is now an island cut off by a 1 in 100-year flood.
So fast that water came up.
Many on the outskirts of Cairns were forced to abandon their homes, some with pets and all with a story to tell.
I don't think anyone's seen it like this, have they? This is unbelievable.
My whole house is flooded, mate. Up to my knees all the way through.
Far North Queenslanders know how to deal with natural disasters, but this one is, this level of rainfall is next level.
And in 8 days, the famous Barron Falls has gone from this to this. So much water, but now a water crisis is looming. The flooding has damaged infrastructure and locals have been relying on bottled water. Cairns Airport is slowly drying out after the runways were swamped yesterday, but there were no flights in or out today. And in Ingham, the big wet flushed out this snappy visitor, a 2.8 metre saltwater croc, dropping in but not so welcome and bundled out of town. Damien Ryan, 9 News.
A breakthrough tonight in the police investigation into the execution of Sydney underworld figure Alan Moradian. A 5th person has been arrested and charged in relation to the killing as police release never-before-seen video of the gunman as he ambushes his victim.
A hitman, hooded and with gun in hand, sprints to the driver's side of a white Mercedes. What you don't see is him execute underworld figure Alan Moradian, sitting in his car parked beneath his Bondi Junction apartment. As the shooter runs, he turns, checks his work before scrambling into the stolen Porsche as the getaway driver speeds off. It's been 6 months since this shooting. Police releasing the video today.
Anybody who may have information about those 2 men in the car park would be of great assistance. Also, when they were seen in James Street later on.
This is the pair on James Street in Bondi. They ditched the Porsche and torch it before jumping in a second getaway car, a red Holden Cruise. It was set alight in Zetland. The 2 videos made public tonight in the hope it'll lead to the arrest of the gunman and the driver. But this morning, a separate arrest.
Please search Hawthorne, open the door!
A 22-year-old in Canley Vale, accused of playing an important role in the organised hit, tracking the victim.
He facilitated the use of trackers and phones that monitored those trackers, which allowed the offenders to locate and carry out the offence.
He's been charged with murder.
He's a cog in the wheel, so to speak, but they all form essential part of the murder.
Becoming the fifth person charged over the death of the Sydney cocaine kingpin. But detectives' attention tonight on arresting two more. Alex Ike, 9 News.
A man's been charged with multiple offences over a fatal crash on the weekend at Cowra in the state's central west. An 84-year-old man returning home from the local bowling club died after the minibus he was travelling in collided with a car on Saturday night. Police say the 32-year-old driver of the car fled the scene before he was arrested. More than 1 million New South Wales drivers are set to have a demerit point wiped as long as they stay offence-free between now and January the 17th. The government hopes the incentive will encourage safer driving after another horror weekend which saw our road toll jump to 349.
Demerit points have always been used as a stick. Accumulate 13 and your licence is gone. Now, a carrot.
Tough penalties for people who do the wrong thing, but encouragement, a demerit point back for those who drive safely for 12 months.
The 12-month scheme started on January 17 this year. It means 1.3 million drivers will be eligible to have a demerit point wiped from their licence on January 17 next year if they remain offence-free. It usually takes 3 years. The road toll remains alarming. 10 people killed just this weekend, and with young people overrepresented, a special plea to have a plan B for the end of the night.
And I know, all the parents out there, we would much rather get a call at 3 a.m. saying, come and pick me up, than a call that says, hey, your son or daughter has died this Christmas.
It's not even about who's driving. It's about whether your child is getting in the back of a car full of youngsters, often not wearing seatbelts, often deciding through peer pressure that they need to get in that car.
The troubling and perhaps surprising statistic, the increasing number of fatalities where people were not wearing a seatbelt, 140 between 2018 and 2022. And in 2022 alone, 16% of all road deaths involved either a driver or passenger not using this critical safety measure. Speed, though, remains a major factor. Between January and November this year, 636,776 drivers were caught by either a fixed or mobile speed camera. The top 5 most common fixed speed camera locations: the WestConnex Tunnel eastbound at Croydon, Princes Highway northbound at St Peters, southbound in the NorthConnex Tunnel, Oxford Street Darlinghurst heading east, and the Gold Coast Highway southbound at Tweed Heads. For drivers in Rozelle, another one to watch out for, this red light speed camera newly installed at the intersection of Darling Street and Victoria Road. It was actually requested by the community after a surge in drivers running red lights there. Eddie Meyer, 9 News.
A Queensland MP has told a court Brittany Higgins confessed to him that she was raped in Parliament House. It's the final week of evidence in Bruce Lehrmann's defamation case against Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson over an interview on The Project in 2021.
Queensland MP Samuel O'Connor fresh from giving evidence, telling the court he had received a text message from Higgins on the 29th of March 2019 saying, "Sorry, I'm just over it. This super up thing happened a while ago." In a follow-up phone call, O'Connor said Higgins told him that Lehrmann had taken her back to Parliament House and raped her. "I absolutely remember the word rape. That's not something that you forget." And she absolutely did say he had taken her back to Parliament House. He said prior to this, Higgins was a real go-getter. Her dream job was to be a press secretary, media advisor in Canberra. After the alleged assault, she was absolutely different. Bruce Lehrmann is suing Network 10 and Lisa Wilkinson, arguing he was defamed by Wilkinson's February 2021 The Project interview. Veteran news boss Peter Meakin, who was an editorial consultant for 10 at the time, told the court he knew the story with Higgins would be legally contentious. The court heard the introduction to the project interview referred to a young woman forced to choose between her career and the pursuit of justice. Under cross-examination, Mr Meakin acknowledged the government had sent an email assuring Ms Higgins would be supported. The trial continues. Vicky Jardim, 9 News.
Mass casualties have been reported after airstrikes on a major refugee camp in northern Gaza. Pressure is now mounting on Israel to change its tactics as the first funerals are held for hostages mistakenly gunned down by fellow Israelis.
An outcome they'd hoped against in circumstances they never could have imagined. Mourners wail and embrace at a funeral for Alon Lulu Shamriz, one of 3 hostages mistakenly killed by Israeli forces inside Gaza. The 26-year-old survived 70 days in captivity. The IDF is investigating how he and 2 others were shot dead by their own soldiers. These images released by the IDF showing banners hung on the building they'd been in, an SOS message and another in Hebrew which reads, "Help 3 hostages." A spokesman says they appear to be written using leftover food. Inside Gaza, the number of those killed is nearing 20,000, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. It claims Israeli strikes at the Jabalia refugee camp killed 90 people today.
There are 4 dead here under the rubble.
The majority of people killed are children and women.
And the humanitarian situation is becoming more dire. Gazans desperate to get their hands on what little aid enters. Clinging to trucks and tossing boxes onto the road. Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
Joe Biden has been caught up in a security scare. The US president was walking out of his campaign headquarters in Delaware when a car collided with his motorcade. Secret Service quickly surrounded the silver sedan with weapons drawn, instructing the driver to put his hands up. Mr Biden was ushered to his armoured SUV and safely taken home. Former President Donald Trump has compared himself to American mafia boss Al Capone during a campaign rally in Reno, Nevada.
But I was indicted 4 times, and Al Capone, Alphonse. You know, if he had dinner with you and if he didn't like the way you smiled at him at dinner, he would kill you. You'd be dead. He got indicted once, I got indicted 4 times. Over I got indicted.
The White House has condemned Mr Trump for some of his recent comments, which include saying immigrants are poisoning the blood of America. He's been locked away for almost 2 decades, but tonight, one of the country's most notorious terrorists is just days away from being released. Algerian-born Abdul Nasser Ben-Brika was convicted of masterminding 2 terror cells, and the opposition's urging the federal government to keep him behind bars.
Notorious terrorist Abdul Nasser Ben-Brika is soon to taste freedom. The Algerian-born cleric's been in custody since 2005, accused and then convicted of leading al-Qaeda-inspired terror cells plotting violent jihad, including a plan to bomb the 2005 AFL Grand Final.
I am teaching my brothers here the Quran and the Sunnah.
He was a kind of bumbling, not very charismatic leader, but his culpability was clear, which is why he got and served a 15-year sentence.
His jail time was extended for 3 years under a continuing detention order, which expires 2 days before Christmas. Rather than apply to keep Ben-Brika in jail, the Albanese government is asking a judge to release him under a supervision order with strict conditions.
Communications, meetings with people will be monitored and limited.
Clearly we want to see that followed through. We have to go through the court process.
Not good enough for the opposition.
3 years ago, he was deemed a risk. The risk environment has not changed. If anything, it's got worse.
No, I don't think the government could have done anything more. I think they've exhausted every reasonable opportunity.
Even if you assume Ben-Brika's a reformed character who no longer poses a risk, the government will worry his release feeds a public perception that the community has been left less safe. Especially after almost 150 long-term detainees, some with serious criminal convictions, have been set free in recent weeks.
Prime Minister, how will you regain your mojo?
What we're doing is continuing to roll out our plan for a better future.
Andrew Probyn, 9 News.
There were disruptions in the heart of the city today due to some utility repairs. All westbound lanes of Market Street were closed, along with 3 of 4 northbound lanes of Clarence Street. It caused traffic delays on surrounding roads in the CBD and impacted some bus services. From new sporting facilities to a specialist music room and private study space, the redeveloped Chatswood High School has something for every student. The new look campus was officially opened today by the Deputy Premier, along with a former student whose idea to streamline administration is now saving the government millions.
The next HSC cohort at Chatswood High are ready to give it their best shot. Heading into their final schooling year at a fully redeveloped campus.
I feel like I can just learn so much better and really use the facilities to boost my education and come out of here with a great HSC I'm proud of.
They're really getting the best opportunity that public schools can provide.
From a multi-purpose hall to a purpose-built music room.
The best part for me is the acoustics.
Across the 93 new learning spaces officially opened by the Deputy Premier, there's something for every student.
I'm a bit of a nerd, so I'd say the senior study space definitely allows us to study in peace, really get into the groove of things.
And the expansion was much needed.
We are now sitting at 1,850 students, and as the Deputy Premier said, we'll be approaching 2,000 next year.
A brand new upgrade's not the only thing Chatswood High has to celebrate heading into 2024. An idea by a student graduate is going statewide.
One day I was sitting with the front office staff seeing all this paperwork that they were going to post home to parents, and I thought there has to be a better way to digitise it.
And so School Bites was born, currently used by 1,650 schools, allowing parents to submit permission forms, pay for excursions and read the newsletter and events calendar. Students can even make subject and sport selections. By June, every public school will be on board.
Blake's innovative program will save school admin staff about 12 hours a week. This will help our teachers and our schools and our parents.
School Bites is one of a suite of financial reforms the state hopes will make productivity gains to the tune of $1 billion, all born from public education. In Chatswood, Liz Daniels, 9 News.
It is time now for a look at today's weather. Hi, Amber.
Good evening to you, Georgie. It has been a warm and muggy day with easterly winds picking up this afternoon. The city dipping to 20 this morning before reaching a top of 29 degrees. The humidity sitting at between 70 to 80%. Our west dipping to 19 degrees, climbing to 34 late this afternoon. Tomorrow is going to be absolutely scorching. Temperatures soaring up to 10 degrees above average. And there is rain on the way too. I'll be back with a full forecast a little later, Georgie.
Thank you, Amber. We'll see you then. A water fight is brewing at our beaches over who should pay for water quality testing. So, will the cost fall to ratepayers? That's next. Also, a newly built home at Ryde already in need of renovations. Heavily armed federal police monitoring travellers at Sydney Airport. And the Christmas lunch favourites costing you less this year. Sydney is home to some of the best beaches in the world, but tonight there's a fight brewing to keep them that way. A special program testing water quality could be in jeopardy, with the state government wanting to push the cost onto councils in order to keep the service.
Summer on Sydney's pristine beaches.
I definitely need to know whether it's safe for my children to go in.
I surf and swim pretty much every day, so it's nice to know that it's not contaminated.
The state government has paid for the Beach Watch program since 1989, testing pollution and contamination levels. $18.5 million was allocated in the budget by the last state government to expand the program for the next decade. But now the government says it won't cover all costs, including collection and testing.
Beach users want to know that when they go to the beach, it's clean and safe. It's important to have that daily monitoring. But instead, Labor is looking at forcing councils to pay for it.
Up until now, 14 Sydney councils had been included in the Beach Watch program without having to pay for the service. Many had not budgeted for these changes and will now have to work out how to fund it going forward. From July 2024, Waverley Council, which covers Bondi, Tamarama and Bronte beaches, will have to pay around $19,000 a year. Randwick Council, covering Coogee, has been quoted over $39,000 a year. Northern Beaches Council, from Manly to Palm Beach, would have to pay $130,000 a year to continue testing. The government says this will put all councils on equal footing with funding, as regional councils have always paid for their testing, leaving a stink.
This threatens the viability of Beach Watch. This threatens the safety of beach users.
Zara James, 9 News.
A brand new ride home is in need of repairs after the driver of a hatchback crashed into it. The 84-year-old allegedly clipped cars parked on Quarry Road around 10:30 last night before slamming into a brick wall and garage. The driver was assessed at the scene for shock. Trolleys are being filled and presents are being wrapped, but the cost of Christmas lunch favourites has changed significantly this year, according to new national data. Finance editor Chris Kohler has the breakdown.
Starting with the main events, and the good news is the price of ham has come down nearly 6% and banana prawns have plunged by nearly a quarter, so they'll be popular at the seafood market this week. But putting chicken on the Christmas table will cost about 10% more than it did last year. It's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to salads and sides. Lettuce and cucumber have dropped, but zucchinis and avocados have plunged by more than 35% thanks to better growing conditions. On the other hand, the cost of washed potatoes has soared, and it'll be one bread roll per person after a 6% price rise. Finally, pavlova has come down in price, but the fruit that goes on top is where the real number crunching will go. Mangoes have jumped nearly 55% in price, but peaches, apricots and cherries are all cheaper than they were. Bad news for those keen on Christmas pudding and a mince pie. Both have risen sharply in price. The advice is to shop local and in season and aim for the markets if you can.
Thank you, Chris. Well, if anyone can encourage blood donation, it's 8-year-olds Piper and Tom. Classmates from the Shire were diagnosed with cancer within weeks of each other. They're now leading the charge for 10,000 donations in the 12 days of Christmas. So we'll tell you how you can help next. A driver walks from court after being found guilty of running over and killing a taxi driver at Chatswood. Also tonight, wind so fierce, passenger jets are blown around on the tarmac. Cake and kids, the Pope celebrates his 87th birthday.
And behind this roller door at the SCG, generations of Australian cricketers would celebrate with cellarmen and ground staff long after test-watching crowds had gone home.
A man has today been found guilty of running over and killing a taxi driver at Chatswood in 2021. It's not the first time the 34-year-old has had a run-in with the law. The magistrate swayed by a similar incident just months earlier.
Allowed to walk for now, but the court in Parramatta hearing Morgan Haverfield-Price's driving behind the wheel of a concrete truck caused another man to death.
Morgan, this is your opportunity to apologise. Do you want to say sorry to Joe's family?
57-year-old taxi driver Joe Booker killed on Chatswood's Fuller's Road on December 1st, 2021. The end of what the magistrate called a tit-for-tat competition. The drivers overtaking each other before Mr Booker stepped out of his Ford Focus, grabbing onto the 34-year-old's truck. He was crushed. Haverfield-Price slammed by the magistrate for attempting to put the blame on the driver, who lost his life.
Morgan, did you blame Joe for his own death?
The magistrate pointing to another offence on the road just 2 months earlier, labelling it violent and strikingly similar. That one involving a nail gun at Burwood. He's already serving a community sentence over that. On this occasion, the court heard Haverfield-Price must have been aware the other man was on his truck as he made the fatal decision to drive off. Tonight, awaiting sentencing, he didn't hang round outside court.
Do you have anything to say?
The sun's nice today.
In Parramatta, Ruth Wynne-Williams, 9 News.
The Australian Federal Police is cracking down on bad behaviour at our airports. Hundreds of extra police will be deployed to terminals ahead of the busiest travel season in 4 years.
Over 500 police will be targeting disruptive and offensive behaviour both in the air and on the ground.
the equivalent of half the Australian population will be travelling through Australia's airports over the next few weeks.
Travellers are being advised to prepare for disruptions and to remain patient. At least 13 people are dead after a wild storm hit eastern Argentina, damaging buildings and uprooting trees. The winds were so powerful, passenger planes were blown across the tarmac of an airport.
A city home to 15 million people hit by the fury of Mother Nature. At this concert, the stage collapsed. Giant inflatables were also hurtled into the crowd at Ezeiza Airport outside Buenos Aires. The force of the wind moved planes, ladders were pushed. This person tried to shelter under an aircraft at the city's horse racing track, the Hippodrome. The usual sound of hooves replaced by wild rain and wind. At times it topped 150 kilometres an hour. The storm was also deadly. Further south in the port city of Bahia Blanca, at least 13 people were killed. 3 days of mourning have been declared. Damage and power outages widespread. Falling trees meant some people were told to stay indoors today. At the worst hit area of Bahia Blanca, Argentina's president arrived to applause. A crisis committee has been set up to help with the storm's recovery. In the United States, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
The families of two young classmates diagnosed with cancer just weeks apart are tonight leading a fresh appeal for blood. Thousands of donations are needed to help support children with cancer over the Christmas period.
Christmas is around the corner, so naturally that puts an extra spring in the steps of 8-year-olds like Piper and Tom.
Is this a gold or mustard?
On top of their Santa wish list is this special request.
Please donate blood.
It's personal because Piper and Tom are undergoing treatment for cancer. Last year, both were in the same class when diagnosed several weeks apart.
We're in year 1 together.
More than a year ago, you could not imagine that you would be in this position.
Piper has a low-grade brain tumour. Tom was diagnosed with a rare sarcoma, and due to gruelling chemotherapy, he relies on blood transfusions.
Today was his 20th transfusion. That's a combination of red blood cells, and today was platelets.
They stop bleeding in trauma and chemotherapy, but they only last for 5 days after we test it. And we take those platelets from blood donations.
Lifeblood says demand is at a 10-year high. About a third of blood collected from donor centres is used to treat patients with cancer. In the lead up to Christmas, there is usually an increased demand for supplies.
It might take 100 donations just to keep a trauma patient alive. We then have the added pressure of all the cancer patients that we want home for Christmas.
Piper and Tom's dads are doing their bit. Between them, they've made 50 donations.
15 minutes, then and done.
It's always good to know that we're helping other people out.
10,000 donations are needed in the 12 days over Christmas and New Year. Across Australia, donor centres will keep operating most days. These are the 15 centres across 4 states that are open on Christmas Day.
You just never know when you're the person that's going to need it next.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
Pope Francis, who's recently suffered a series of health issues, including a bout of bronchitis, has turned 87. The pontiff celebrated his birthday by having cake with children and families who are supported by a Vatican charity. For years, the Sydney Cricket Ground has treated spectators to some of sport's greatest moments. But what lies below the turf has been off limits until now. 9 News has delved into a hidden cellar and uncovered secret rituals, usually reserved exclusively for Test cricketers.
Being the birthplace of Australian cricket, history is everywhere you turn at the SCG. Bradman's highest ever scorecard is pinned to the home dressing room. The benches where he sat awaiting his drop remain.
It's pretty heavily guarded and the players are sort of cocooned in their change rooms.
And below, A seller wedded to a long-time secret cricket ritual, as revealed by former quick Brett Lee.
You'll get a cricket bat and go on the floor, 3 taps, and then a few minutes later you'll hear, which means come downstairs to the cellar.
It's apparently a secret tradition going back to the 50s.
This was probably started with the ground staff. When the crowd's gone home and the match has been won or lost, just imagine them coming down here and having a few quiet ales, or in this case, wine and whiskey. To be a fly on the wall in those days, I think, would have been fantastic.
Part of the tradition was to sign any old piece of palaver for prosperity.
You know, it's probably a bit late in the night. There's a little bit of language on there, but overall...
What about Gilly? He wails in. First loss at SCG, but let's have a drink anyway. As Gilly said, it was the only loss for the Aussies during this Ashes series. The ground now planning on releasing more of its archival history for public viewing.
We allow them to write on the furniture, so to speak. But not only that, we turn them into artefacts.
At the SCG, Mike Dalton, 9 News.
Ahead in 9 News, the school holiday activities that won't break the bank. From Bondi to Parramatta, what you need to know about this week's extended trading hours. And in sport with Danika, tensions are growing at the Panthers.
Well, Georgie, it comes after Jerome Luai informed teammates the 2024 season will be his last at Penrith. But could he head to the Tigers even earlier? Michael Chammas has exclusive details next. Could Nathan Lyon go on to become Australia's leading wicket taker? That's next too. Plus, is there wild weather in store for the Sydney to Hobart fleet when it sets sail on Boxing Day?
And we are in for some rain over the next week. I'll tell you when it will arrive and how much we're expecting shortly.
There's growing tension at Penrith tonight following Jerome Luai's decision to leave the Panthers as he prepares to sign a monster deal with the Tigers. Michael Chammas joins us live now. Michael, what's the latest?
Yes, Danika, the Penrith Panthers, they returned to training today, but Jerome Luai was nowhere to be seen. Just 48 hours ago, he informed the club of his decision to leave the Panthers at the end of this season to join up with the West Tigers. Now, Luai's representatives, they have since informed the club that Jerome, he needs time away from the club and wouldn't be at training to deal with the fallout of what has been rather a dramatic weekend. Now, it comes after he left training early on Saturday, just moments after he informed his teammates of his decision to leave the club. Now, no deal has officially been signed, but there's no doubt, Danika, there'll be Tigers fans wondering if Jerome Luai is contemplating an early release from the reigning premiers.
Yes, plenty more to play out on this one. Thank you, Michael. Parramatta Eels players have spent the day giving back to the community during a visit to the Ronald McDonald Children's House at Westmead. Joe Offahengawi was among those taking a break from training, but he's keen to get back on the field and prove his dedication to coach Brad Arthur.
I want to be a part of Parramatta for the rest of my career, and I know by doing that you've got to train hard and work hard. And Brad's no easy man to impress, but you've got to impress him by how hard you work.
It's Offahengawi's first pre-season at Parramatta after switching from the Tigers mid-season. Nathan Lyon is already our greatest finger spinner, but Pat Cummins believes he could finish his career with even more wickets than Shane Warne. He reached number 500 in Australia's demolition of Pakistan, 360 run winners inside 4 days.
Job done one day early, giving Australia's Test stars some extra time at home.
Yeah, that's it. Any time at home is precious, and so yeah, we've got about 3 days, I think, at home to be around family, and then we'll head down to Melbourne.
Australia's pace trio has every intention of playing there too. Lance Morris has been left out of the squad for the Boxing Day Test, meaning MCG specialist Scott Boland is the only other option.
Is there a desire, for you guys to play every test this summer?
I think there always is. Three of us didn't have too heavy a workload in that first test, so I think we've all pulled up pretty well. Never know what's ahead, but yeah, we'll be keen to play everything we can.
For now, the Aussies are celebrating their spinner Nathan Lyon.
Oh, that looks really good indeed. No sizzling word.
Reaching his milestone on review, wicket number 500.
Pat didn't want to review it.
Nate was mumbling away. He wasn't saying anything.
I know I was quietly confident that I would hit leg, hoping that was all
very
red.
quietly confident.
Lyon now sits 8th on the all-time wicket takers tally. Re-energised after returning from injury, the only Australians now ahead of him are Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne.
Yeah, he knows exactly which person he ticks off every time. Exactly.
There's obviously been a lot of hard work go into the journey, and I've had a lot more bad days than good days, but to be out there in the middle, back after doing my calf with a special group of people, it's pretty special.
Sam Jordan, 9 News.
The long-range weather forecast is meant to provide Sydney to Hobart sailors with answers, but today's briefing left most scratching their heads. Unpredictable conditions have left navigators under pressure as they try to plot the perfect plan to tackle the Great Race.
Sydney Harbour calm under overcast skies, but this year's race south is set to be anything but.
At this stage, it's most likely that the race will begin with some kind of southwest to southwesterly wind, and during the race probably see some rain and some thunderstorms as well. So this far out, there's significant uncertainty.
Ahead of her 31st Sydney to Hobart, the fleet's most decorated female sailor, Adrienne Cahalan, reached out to veteran meteorologist Roger Badham to get his take on the weather patterns.
Can you think of a year that's like this? And he even said, no, right at the moment, I can't really think of a year when it's been so much rain, so much moisture and so much uncertainty in the forecast.
At 29, Alice Parker is one of the youngest navigators in the fleet. Is that what you live for, though, as a navigator?
Yeah, I love that. The more complicated the forecast, the better, actually, because it means there's more things to think about and more things to discuss and work out with the boys.
So how do you feel when you nail the decision and you get it right?
Oh, it's great. That's what you do it for, right?
While she thinks the Inform URM group is a chance of being crowned overall champions,
hopefully we do get a little bit of that mix in the forecast and then we'll be in the mix for a win.
one Supermaxi has essentially ruled out any chance of Comanche's 2017 race record being broken.
The first thing we'd say is with this amount of uncertainty, can't be definitive, but from what we've seen in the few runs, not this morning, I would say no. So ask me again in a week, yeah.
Zach Bailey, 9 News.
Well, there will be no extended Christmas break for swimming superstar Kaylee McKeown, who's planning a jam-packed racing schedule ahead of the Paris Olympics to ensure she's at peak fitness.
I've got a lot of pressure on my shoulders leading into next year, but you never know what can happen between now and then. There's a lot of backstrokers in the world and they're all coming. I've got a big target on my back after last Olympics. So.
McKeown is considering adding the 200-metre individual medley to her program in Paris. And that is a very busy day in sport, Georgie.
It is, Danika. See you soon. Thank you. Next on 9 News, a truck stuck in the path of a speeding train. What's open late? Your guide to this week's last-minute Christmas shopping. And from Greenacre to Centennial Park, how to keep the kids amused these holidays.
Our share market was on a 6-day winning streak, but it couldn't keep it going through to the new week. The ASX dropping today with banks steady, but supermarkets and Telstra losing ground. Wasn't all bad, of course. Building materials company Adbri rocketed on news it could be sold for over $2 billion. And Tabcorp was another big winner after announcing a major extension to its Victorian gambling licence. The Australian dollar started the week close to 4-month highs, buying 67 US cents and 61.5 euro cents.
Good on you, Chris. Thank you. A truck stuck on tracks has been wiped out by a speeding cargo train. The dramatic collision in Fort Worth, Texas, caused 19 rail cars to derail. The truck driver thankfully escaped unharmed, while the train driver was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Well, today kicks off 6 weeks of school holidays for most Sydney students, and while that's exciting for kids, it can be a challenge for parents to keep them occupied. But it can be fun and low cost if you know where to look.
As the sun starts to set, torches flash on and all kinds of creatures come out to play.
It's basically bringing nature to urban kids because we're really lucky we have so much wildlife here.
Spotlight Prowl is a $23 twilight tour in Centennial Park and Western Sydney parklands.
In Western Sydney, you can see kangaroos, wallabies, echidnas.
The park's, of course, free to explore at your own pace, whether it be strolling among the flowers or zooming through bamboo forests.
100 out of 10. It was great.
At the art gallery, budding artists can create their own abstract masterpiece inside the Kandinsky exhibition. Or at Liverpool's new library, learn to build solar-powered robots. Play on at the free Bulldogs League Stars Clinic, one of more than 50 low-cost activities from Canterbury Bankstown Council.
There are water adventures, there are trips down to Cronulla to learn to surf or even learn to fish.
Kids can also cool down at Greenacres Splash Park or be one of the first to swim at the new Penrith Beach, opening to the public tomorrow.
And for those with a sense of adventure, you might like to hire a pedal boat here at Cockle Bay. It can fit up to 2 adults and 2 children. What do you think, guys?
Yay! The big draw cards require a bigger budget. Journey back 3,000 years into the ancient world of Ramses at the Australian Museum. Visit off-peak to pay less. Or take your cheeky monkeys to Taronga for a glimpse of the baby chimpanzees. Just book ahead online for a cheaper ticket. Annalise Bolt, 9 News.
Many of us might be planning a scaled-back Christmas this year, but retailers are hoping for a bumper final week of trade. Some shops have extended trading hours to give shoppers every opportunity to pick up last-minute gifts and stock the pantry.
Spending might be tight this year, but in the final week before Christmas, shoppers are expected to part with $9 billion. From Wednesday to Friday, Westfield Sydney will stay open until 10 p.m, 7 p.m. on Saturday and 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Westfield Parramatta will also open until 10 on Wednesday, midnight on Thursday and Friday, and until 9 on Saturday, while Bondi Junction will stay open until 10 on Thursday and Friday and until 9 on Saturday. Macquarie Centre will be trading until 10 on Thursday and Friday and 6 p.m. on Saturday. And DFO Homebush will trade until 8 on Thursday and 7 on Friday and Saturday. But my advice is not to leave your Christmas shopping too late and to take a list. That way you can get in and get out.
Santa made a special visit to Bear Cottage at Manly today, the only children's hospice in the state. Swapping his sleigh for the Toll Ambulance Rescue helicopter, he handed out dozens of presents alongside the Premier. The facility plays a critical role in providing paediatric palliative care, supporting around 250 families a year. Coming up on 9 News, Amber with the weather.
Thanks, Georgie. Tonight will be mostly clear, dipping to between 20 and 22 degrees. Right now, though, it is 25 outside in the city, 30 degrees in our west. I'll have your weather, including the first official Christmas Day forecast, next. It was a warm and partly cloudy day with easterly winds picking up this afternoon. The harbour looking a little cloudy and it was very muggy with the humidity sitting at around 80% for much of the day along the coast. It reached a top of 33 degrees in Richmond and Penrith, 31 in Blacktown, Liverpool and Campbelltown, 29 the top in City and Cronulla. Across New South Wales, it was a very, very hot day in the west with tops in the high 30s to low 40s. A few showers and storms developing around the northern ranges this afternoon with smoke and haze near Narrabri. And tonight there is a storm warning for parts of the mid-north coast and the northern tablelands. Tomorrow, troughs and a front will trigger showers and storms across Queensland, New South Wales, eastern Victoria and Tasmania. A possible shower on the way for Brisbane, 31 degrees, showers and a possible storm for Canberra, 32, and a shower or two for Melbourne, a top of 18. We're expecting showers and some storms across much of the state tomorrow. The heaviest falls will be around the northern tablelands. Top temperatures soaring above 30 degrees for most of the state, heading for 33 in Grafton and Newcastle and 34 on the way for Wagga Wagga and Griffith, while along the coast there is a strong wind warning from Coffs Harbour all the way down to Eden. Sydney will be very hot and partly cloudy tomorrow with a high chance of showers, most likely in the afternoon and evening. We could also see a storm, possibly severe, and southerly winds will really pick up tomorrow night as a cool change moves through. If we see any rain, the city could see up to 7 millimetres with 1 to 15 millimetres expected across our western suburbs. Heading for tops of 37 to 38 degrees across inland areas, including Penrith, Liverpool and Campbelltown, 35 for Terry Hills in the city and 33 23 degrees for Cronulla. Looking ahead, we could see rain nearly every day for the next week. Wednesday is looking like the wettest with between 4 to 25 millimetres of rain and a top of 23. Showers and 24 degrees on Thursday, with just a possible shower or two on Friday, all the way through to Christmas Eve. Those overnight lows from 22 down to 18 degrees. In our west, rain and a cool 22 on Wednesday, showers and 23 on Thursday. Cloudy and a top of 27 degrees on Friday, with just a possible shower or two across the weekend. Overnight lows range from 20 down to 16 degrees. And finally, the all-important Christmas Day forecast is out. At this stage, it's looking cloudy with a high chance of showers and a top of 26 degrees. It is still a week out though, so plenty of time for that to change, Georgie.
And improve, hopefully. Thank you, Amber. And that is 9 News for this Monday. Dimity Clancy's up next with a current affair. I'm Georgie Gardner. Thanks for being with us. Enjoy your evening. Good night.